All right, y'all, this is our Week 11 recap. A fun week of college football across all the conferences. We got to start off talking about the SEC. We saw Bama get a big win. We saw Georgia absolutely demolish Mississippi State. We saw Texas A&M take care of business in Columbia. And we saw some surprises as well from some of the other teams in the conference. Hunter, thoughts on this week and, how you're feeling for the remaining two games of the season?
A big week for the top of the SEC to kind of continue to separate and put themselves in position to make the playoffs. And now we got pass for Atlanta that we could talk about too. But we saw a couple of interesting things this week with some quarterback changes. LSU taking Nussmeier out of the game for Michael Van Buren. And we saw Florida, with Lagway as well, moving him out for Tramel Jones Jr. Some quarterback changes are happening. We can talk more about what that means for these teams, but it was an interesting week, like right down the stretch, and a lot of these teams making some adjustments.
Yeah, definitely really interesting. And we didn't even touch on the Vanderbilt Auburn game, probably the best game of the day in the SEC from like how it actually played. But the quarterback changes, the domination from the top four teams in the conference, I'd say a lot to talk about. And so we came together and put together 5 questions around what we were thinking and what's happening when it comes to the SEC. And so, first question was, after all the football we've seen, who is the best team in the SEC? We got Bama, UGA, Texas A&M. You can maybe throw Ole Miss in there. They played Citadel, but we saw, 3 teams have some decent tests and perform well. So thoughts on the best team between those 3 or 4 teams?
You might be surprised. Like, I'm going to say this, but I think it's Georgia, to be honest with you. Like, to be completely honest, and if you are listening and you've listened to some of the criticism I've had about Georgia in the past, it's been primarily focused on pass rush. They've let a lot of teams have a lot of time in the pocket where they were able to move the ball. That's why Georgia has these high-scoring games. This week against Mississippi State, we saw a different side of the Georgia team that was able to get a little bit more pressure on a quarterback. If that continues to develop, the way this offense is going, the way the running backs is going, I think that they're the best team. And I don't know if necessarily Alabama wants to see them again in Atlanta if you're trying to fight for one of the top 4 spots.
Absolutely. I would say that after this week, I agree that Alabama wouldn't want to see Georgia. I'm still going to ride the train of the Aggies. Took care of business against a good Missouri team, was able to run the football pretty dominantly, win on the road, one of their marquee wins of the season. I'm going to say Texas A&M to this point, but was super impressed with what Georgia did. I mean, Nate Frazier, 181 yards. We saw Stockton throw the football pretty well. Georgia's performance wasn't too much different to me than what I saw A&M do against Mississippi State personally.
Yeah. And then, you have Alabama too that did really well defensively in the game. 3 field goals, all else you could put up. They had pretty good red zone defense, especially down the stretch. But we know some of the struggles that LSU has up to this point. But Alabama has some gaps. I think A&M has some gaps on the run defense side. Georgia still has some gaps. A lot of these teams have vulnerabilities that can be exposed, which is why you have some of those roundabouts with Georgia beating Ole Miss, who in Alabama beating Georgia. That's why you have this, because these teams have been able to exploit the vulnerabilities. So there's really only a couple games, like these teams now of the top 4 won't see each other anymore. Like that's it. Yeah. So now it's, Texas has to see 2 of them. So that's kind of where the shakeup could happen. But all 4 of these teams are in the driver's seat.
Pretty much. It's definitely interesting to see. And I'm excited to watch the Georgia Tech game here in a couple weeks. I'm excited to see Bama versus Auburn after the showing we saw from Auburn. And that leads us to our next question. Is Vanderbilt still in the hunt? We watched them go back and forth with Auburn. They were down 17-3 at one point in the first half. And Diego Pavia pulled out some heroics. But do you think Vanderbilt's still in the hunt? And any thoughts on Auburn's performance that game?
First, to Vanderbilt being in the hunt, yeah. I mean, there's things that they can't control that apply. If you're looking at ESPN, FPI right now has them with about a 24-25% chance of making the playoffs. They only have Kentucky and Tennessee left. They're not marquee matchups for them to really propel. They'll need some help. Virginia losing, Louisville losing helps, but one of the ACC teams is going to have to make their way back in. They'll all be behind Vanderbilt when the CFP comes out this week, but one will eventually jump them. They're going to need some things to happen with Oklahoma, with Texas, who have tough games. They're in the hunt, but they need a lot of help.
I agree. I think they're definitely in the hunt. The way I look at the playoffs, it's the 5 automatic spots and the 7 at large. And like Vanderbilt is purely trying to qualify for the at large. BYU losing helps if the committee feels like the Big 12 is a one-bid conference. If you're a Vandy fan, you're pulling for Texas Tech to win the SEC or win the Big 12. Make that one bid. Obviously, we saw Louisville go down. We saw, Virginia go down. So maybe the ACC is a one-bid conference. That clears up more spots from the 7 for Vanderbilt to have a shot. And like you said, their schedule's pretty favorable. You should be rooting for Tennessee to win next week against Florida, and you should hope that you beat Tennessee. I think they're still in the hunt, definitely, to be one of the top 4 or 5 teams. And the way the playoffs are shaking up right now, and maybe the SEC gets 5 teams in, maybe 6.
They need to see Tennessee ranked. They have to have Tennessee ranked at the end of the season, because if not, they don't have a ranked win. They would have lost to the only 2 teams that would in the season ranked, and that would be in Alabama and Texas, because Missouri going to be out this week after the loss. LSU obviously out. So South Carolina, we know what happens with them. So there's really no marquee win for them. And I'm going to, SEC bias aside, if we make those arguments for some of these teams that don't have marquee wins and big wins, I'll make it for Vanderbilt as well. They haven't necessarily done anything against a team that's shown anything. So that's
so you think
the argument.
So you're thinking Missouri is going to drop out of the rankings coming up here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they are 22 right now. So that's a fair point.
Yeah. And then I don't know if Missouri even is going to win next week. Like, Missouri could continue to fall because of the quarterback issue. So
we'll see. It's a fair point, but I agree with your points. Like, they're definitely still in the hunt. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, like, you should feel pretty good that you still have a shot, and you still have a shot at a record season with 10 wins as well. Can Auburn become bowl eligible? They were the other team in that game. Look, I'm not an Auburn fan, but I might be saying DJ Durkin should be our coach. And you still can become bowl eligible. You got a couple games left. They got Mercer, and they got them tied.
Yeah.
So, thoughts on their bowl eligibility prospects?
Yeah. I mean, they need 2 wins, and I think that those are both winnable games. Mercer, obviously, and I think that Alabama, you're playing at home. And if I'm an Alabama fan, and I'm talking down on Alabama this whole episode. So, whatever, there's opportunities for Auburn to beat Alabama. Like, if this offense plays like they did against Vanderbilt, there's room for them to score. We know this defense is pretty good. They didn't look stellar against Vanderbilt, but there is opportunities to shake things up. If they're clicking, it's going to be a home game, Jordan Hare. Then I think that they can absolutely be bowl eligible. The team that we've seen up to this point is different now under new coaching, and it's not a good look for Hugh Freeze to see what this team was able to do in the first game without him.
Yeah, definitely not a great look. And I mean, we watched Ashton Daniels. He had 2 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, I was talking about it last week in the preview. He can run a little bit, and they got Cam Coleman involved. They got Eric Singleton involved. It's almost as if they were listening to Hunter coach them on what they should be doing. Like, underutilizing your weapons. All right, bet. Eric Singleton, get a tutty.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Coleman, get a tutty, get a 2-point conversion. All right, run the football. Great catch. Run the football. All right, yep. And then you're passing the ball. The passing attack exists for Auburn fans. So I absolutely agree. They do have a shot to become bowl eligible. When we talk about our SEC championship game previews, which are SEC championship game scenarios, Hunter's going to talk on this. If Bama was to lose that game, they're still not necessarily out of it for the SEC championship game. Right. But for the case for Auburn, I would feel pretty good when you go and kind of have a performance like that against a ranked SEC team that people are putting a lot of respect on this season.
And even though bowls don't necessarily mean and don't have that power that they used to, where teams are, you'll see opt-outs, and you'll see these things, it's still very important for a program who's going through a coaching change to have that extra game, to have something that these players are getting an accolade for. You're trying to maintain a lot of these players as you go through a coaching overhaul, a coaching change. It's good for the program to make a bowl when you're trying to retain talent and you're trying to continue to be one of the premier jobs, premier programs. So it's very important for them. And it's a 2-pronged win, because if you get there, that means that you beat Alabama, which is a huge thing for the program, for whichever team wins. And it's big to make a bowl game.
It's big to make a bowl game. It's big for the state, big for boosters, big for, NIL morale. Like, you need those guys paying money, guys and gals paying the money to the players to retain the top talent. And so we both agree that they have a chance to become bowl eligible. I'm not an Alabama fan. I'm not an Alabama hater, but based upon the football I've seen, I think they do have a shot to win that game. And I don't think the game against Mercer is going to show me something otherwise. Question number 4. the Florida-Kentucky game. Was this win more about Florida or more about Kentucky?
I'm gonna say that this was a little bit more about Florida because, and we're gonna be doing a Florida Ole Miss preview, and there's even more to break down when we talk about the X's and O's of what happened with this Florida team. But there was a lack of morale, motivation to give up, a lack of buy-in. It just felt like the team didn't even show up to play. I mean, Kentucky had some issues as well. We saw probably one of the ugliest stretches in a football game this year, 4 turnovers in 7 plays back and forth. Neither team wanted the ball. But I think, Florida, it tells more about them. It tells more about who they're going to become because you have the issues with Lagway. You bench him, 3 picks in the first half. Do you retain that talent? Who wants to come coach at Florida? You see Lane Kiffin online making fun of him. Like, I don't think he goes, like I don't think he goes there. And it's not, you're not doing yourself any favors trying to put yourself as the top job available in the country when you have a lack of buy-in from your program. So I think this win is a little bit more, or the loss is more about Florida than what the win is for Kentucky.
I agree. I mean, 4 turnovers, like, it's just not a good day. And it's not like Kentucky played that much better. They had 4 turnovers as well. But I agree with you. It is more about Florida. I'll say it's 60% Florida, 40% Kentucky. So I'm gonna give Kentucky the props for winning this game. You got a guy in Cutter Boley. Garrett, he need to go ahead and get some money. It don't matter. You got Cutter Boley, right? He's winning the game. You saw McGowan get involved. It breathes some life into the program. An SEC home win, back-to-back SEC wins. Don't look now. Wildcats could also make a bowl game.
Yeah.
But for Florida, you're trying to recruit a new coach. Why would you sign up for this dumpster fire? Jaden Ball, he could probably leave. DJ Lagway, he probably should leave. Like, it's definitely wasn't a great performance, and especially to one of the bottom record-wise teams in the conference with Kentucky. Like, I think we had them number 16 in our power rankings, if I'm not mistaken.
And I'll give Florida a little bit of leeway. I mean, the injury report was like multiple pages because of how many players they're missing. They have some receivers now opting out for the rest of the season, trying to preserve some redshirt because the season's over. The weapons aren't there. Jaden Ball really is one of the few players on offense that was really playing his heart out. We talked about him all week. Big fan, or all season. I'm a big fan of him. We'll see what happens with this Florida team. Now they played spoiler to Ole Miss last year. They have that opportunity again this week. We're going to be doing a preview of that game. So Ole Miss fans, Florida fans, be sure to tune into that. That's going to be a huge one where maybe that morale comes back for Florida, knowing that the coaching situation is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And I think it's probably a lot easier to get up for a game like playing Ole Miss compared to getting up for a game like Kentucky. And that, not to excuse the Florida performance. But you got to get up every week. You're getting a bag. Everybody on that team is making some form of money unless you're a walk-on. So you got to get up every week. And as Hunter mentioned, we'll be previewing that game this week. We obviously, a lot of Florida fans watch us, a ton of Ole Miss fans watch us. Thank you so much for all the Ole Miss fans that tuned in to our Citadel preview last week. 3,200 views. Love that. Keep it coming. And so lastly, just kind of a couple minutes left, a little light around the country. We saw a lot kind of happen. And this is the best part about college football. Because of the other games, it changes how the top 12 can look, and it creates great stories. We saw some upsets in the ACC. We saw a major game in the Big 12 that's going to potentially impact the Big 12 standings and who makes it from that conference. We saw some G5 upsets on Friday night. Thoughts around the country and what it means?
Yeah, and playoff thoughts aside, this is what we saw this weekend is that the ACC will likely be doing what they did last year, where they're going to be pulling a team from outside the top 12 in the ACC into the playoffs, and it's wide open. Like, pending what happens with Georgia. If Georgia Tech wins that game, they should absolutely be a top 12 team, and then we'll see what happens there. But with the losses from Louisville, with the loss from Virginia, you have Georgia Tech, you have Miami, you have these ACC teams all battling it out for that ACC spot. They're probably a one-bid conference right now, and it's going to be that conference winner. And these 2 games help to maybe blow that open to where more teams now have an opportunity for it.
Yeah. They definitely could be a one-bid conference, and Pitt's in it. So I'm going to be going to the Pitt Georgia Tech game here in 2 weeks. Pitt's obviously 3rd in the ACC right now. Georgia Tech's number 1 in the ACC. Virginia's sitting at 2. That is potentially a de facto elimination game for the ACC championship teams to make it. Pitt's also playing Notre Dame this week. I'm pretty sure that's an out-of-conference game, but that's also going to impact potentially the standings going forward if Pitt was to win that game, or if Notre Dame's to win that game and they have another good ranked win, which we know the committee will give them. So that's interesting for the ACC side. Any thoughts on the Big 12 and kind of, that side?
It's open, but Texas Tech has kind of separated themselves as no matter what happens with conference play, they should probably get a bid either way. So now it's opportunity Big 12 to be a 2-bid conference because of how strong Texas Tech looks, but then the opportunity for another team to potentially beat them in the game. Big win for them. I had taken BYU plus the points. I don't know what I saw on them, but I won't see it again. Texas Tech is legit right now, and I think that they have a real shot at getting a home game potentially in the playoffs and getting the automatic bid from the Big 12, depending on how that goes. But yeah, big week for them.
I think they could potentially play their way into a first round bye, which in that case they wouldn't get a home game necessarily, but it's a possibility with I think the respect the committee's shown, that the respect the AP's shown them this season, running through the Big 12, and then the Big 10. The last power conference, we saw Indiana struggle against a Penn State team that fired their coach this year, and we saw Oregon win in a dogfight against a ranked Iowa team. So thoughts on those two games? I think those are the two most impactful games of the conference play in the Big 10.
Yeah, to an extent, I got to give a win a win. Wins at a certain point count as a win. It's a ranked opponent. Oregon on the road, Indiana on the road, no matter what these opponents are. Now I think you can have conversations about it, and I think the committee should, but I don't see much movement or shakeup because of it. Like, I don't think Indiana is a worse team for this. They just didn't have their best day. Oregon, not a worse team for this, a rainy game in cold weather in Iowa, but there's a conversation to be had about it if we were to get to should A&M be above Indiana? Probably.
I think the conversation.
I think Indiana. I think A&M should be number one just because of the resume, but I do think that this could potentially be something where you look at them and say, all right, they might be better than Indiana at this point.
Well, I feel like at this point, because Notre Dame's ranked ahead of Texas, right?
Yeah.
So Texas A&M has the best win between Ohio State and Indiana.
It'll likely be a top 9. Notre Dame will probably be number 9.
Yeah. So at this point, I don't see why A&M is not number 1. And I know we're an SEC podcast. I'm going off of who they beat and who's the highest ranked. No, it's fully objective. No objective actually.
Yeah. And you could say Ohio State's been more dominant. And we're going to talk about this Tuesday night. We're going to do it. We'll talk about it Tuesday night when the actual rankings come out. But Ohio State has been extremely dominant. And if we're going to criticize maybe Indiana's close win over Penn State, A&M has had a few of those. Arkansas, Arkansas doesn't look any better than Penn State does.
That's true.
So it's got to go both ways.
Respect.
But with the wins itself, I'm more impressed. But Indiana has the one against Oregon. So I don't know.
My bias there, talking about Arkansas, and this is full. This can be perceived as SEC bias. It cannot. It's the string of games. I think yes, UCLA or Penn State can give you a tough game, but there's no Rutgers in the SEC. There is no there's no freaking
Purdue. I mean, Purdue played Ohio State. They're 0-7.
Right. There's not those types of teams to me, but if you look at the records purely, yes, those teams do exist in the SEC.
And I may be getting this number wrong. And I might have to put a note on here on the screen with the actual stats, but something like right now, Indiana's last 4 Big Ten opponents are 2-23 in conference play. So, they're playing really bottom tier. That separation is really there in the Big Ten. Yeah. There's a lot of teams that don't have a conference win. Purdue, Penn State, they don't have conference wins. Wisconsin just got their first one.
Their first one. Kind of screwed over the conference in some ways.
Yeah.
Because Washington from a perception
from the back. Yeah.
You kind of need 5 or 6 ranked teams and a little bit of people to beat each other up to propel some of these resumes. Yeah. There might be a glorified ACC at this point outside of the top teams. Maybe I'm pushing it. Last thing for you, I know we were trying to keep this pretty concise, but is there a possibility in some world where the G5 gets 2 auto bids?
It would require some crazy things to happen in the ACC. And I don't know all the scenarios around that. I'm not impressed enough with the G5 competition. We talked about it so much off camera. If there was undefeated G5 schools right now, I mean, we haven't seen the rankings this week. I would expect probably JMU to be ranked
25
with the omission now of Missouri dropping out, Washington dropping out. But there's no teams like last year who are actually playoff contenders by rank. So I don't see two teams jumping into the top 25 unless some crazy things happen in the ACC. But even then, but you have Pitt coming from way outside that could win it, and you might have two G5 schools above them with like a UNT and a JMU.
Yeah, and I think Pitt doesn't really have a good best win. Did they beat Louisville this year? Is that their best win?
No,
they don't really have. So Pitt doesn't really have a best win. SMU's got the Miami win, so that looks good for them. But if SMU wins the conference with like 3 losses, they might not necessarily be ranked deservingly, in my opinion. But at the same time, there's not enough G5 teams between JMU, North Texas to occupy, and we saw San Diego State lose to Hawaii to occupy 2 spots. But it's a fun talking point because I know the internet's been going crazy about G5 doesn't deserve a spot, and it's the 5 highest ranked conference champs. So like the Big 12 could get kicked out, the ACC could get kicked out, the Big 10 and the SEC historically probably won't get kicked out, but like it ain't safe for the ACC depending on how it all plays out. So
no, and it could be the look of like Pitt beating Notre Dame or Pitt losing to Notre Dame. They're now a 3-loss team with really no marquee wins. Then they pick up a Georgia Tech win. They pick up a Miami win, but those 2 teams could also lose a game. So Pitt could be the ACC champion with no ranked wins. These are all scenarios, but it's something.
It's something. It's definitely something. But it was a fun week of football. You got to cherish it all. And as always, we love doing recaps, game previews, special segments. As Hunter mentioned, and I'll let Hunter say it himself. What do we got coming this week?
We got a bunch of big games. We're going to be doing an SEC championship game scenario breakdown where we're looking at for the 5 teams who have an opportunity to make it to Atlanta, what they need to happen. It took a while to run all the different scenarios on how this could happen. So be sure to tune into that one. We'll be dropping. We can put some links in for these if they're already out. By the time this is posted, Florida, Ole Miss. We're talking about that game this week. We got LSU, Arkansas. We got the big game, which is going to be Alabama, Oklahoma. Both teams, in the top 12 right now that, want to have a playoff spot. So we got a lot of big games this week we're going to be previewing.
Yeah, it's gonna be another fun week and a lot of big games, as Hunter mentioned, and SEC championship game scenarios. As always, hit that like button if you like good college football talk. Some of the best guys on the internet right here. You're listening to them. And as always, I'm Randall, that Jr. Got Hunter Ziesman. This is a new SEC podcast.